In this video, we are just going to look through some chance experiments and have a look at the simple fractions that we can allocate to the probability or the outcomes of certain events. So we can see that this spinner has 5 outcomes. It has red, green, grey, yellow and blue. The probability of spinning a yellow is 2 out of 9 because 2 out of the 9 portions are yellow. The probability of red is 3 out of 9. There are 3 out of the 9 portions that are red. And we also know that 3 out of 9 or 3/9 is the same as 1/3 because 1/3 of the spinner is coloured red. Let's have a look at another spinner. We can see that there are 4 outcomes. We have green, red, yellow and blue. The probability of landing on a blue is 2 out of 8, or 1/4, because we know that 1/4 of the spinner is coloured blue. What is the probability of green? The probability of green is 3 out of 8, because 3 out of the 8 portions are green. Let's look at the probability of when we roll a dice. So we have 6 outcomes when we roll a dice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. The probability of rolling a 1 is 1 out of 6. The probability of rolling a 1, 2, or a 3 is 3 out of 6, or half. The probability of rolling a 7 is 0, because there is no 7 on a 6-sided dice. The probability of rolling an odd number is 3 out of 6, or a half. Let's look at the number of outcomes now when we flip a coin twice. So when we flip a coin twice, the possible outcomes are a head and a head then a tail then a head, or a tail then a tail. So there are 4 possible outcomes: a head and a head and a tail and a head, and a tail and a tail. Now let's work through some questions. What is the probability that I'll flip a head and then a tail? Well, I know that 1 out of my 4 results will be a head and then a tail, so it's 1/4. The probability that I'll flip a head and then a tail is 1/4. What is the probability that I'll flip a head first? Well, I know 2 out of my 4 outcomes have a head being flipped first. So 2 out of 4, or 2/4 of my results, are head being flipped first, or half of my results, half. What is the probability that I'll flip a tail? Well, I know 3 out of my 4 results have a tail being flipped. So I know that 3/4 of my results, or the likelihood of flipping a tail, is 3/4. Let's have a look at what happens when we roll a coin and flip a dice at the same time. What are the possible outcomes that could happen? Well, we know that there could be a head or a tail, and there could be the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So we know that there are 12 possible outcomes. So the probability of landing on a head and a 4 is 1 out of 12. The probability of landing on a tail is 6 out of 12, or a half. The probability of landing on a 4 or a 5 is 4 out of 12, or 1/4. Because we know that we could either have a head and a 4, a tail and a 4, a head and a 5, or a tail and a 5. Let's have a look at this next question. We have 3 blocks, 1, 2, and 3, and a child decides to stack them. How many different ways could the child stack the blocks? Well, we know the child could stack 1, 2, and 3, 1, 3, and 2, 2, 1, and 3, 2, 3, and 1, 3, 1, and 2, 3, 2, and 1. So we know that there are 6 different outcomes. There are 6 different ways that the child could stack these blocks. The probability that the child will stack a green first will be a 2 out of 6, or 1/3. The probability that he will stack, or she will stack, a green, yellow, then red is a 1 out of 6. The probability that they'll stack a purple is 0 out of 6, because there aren't any purple blocks. Go over this video a number of times, go back to the start and really think about the allocation of fractions, the simple fractions that we are allocating to the probability of various outcomes. take a minute to review this video and really try and think about what it is that I'm explaining and these different chance experiments and what they show.